see it, and it's extraordinary. But you landed on the right night, because I'm going to introduce you right now to the director, the writer, the producer, and the co-star. And you know what? That's all one person. Joel Edgerton right here. Hi. And he just came in from Australia just to be with you tonight. So he landed, when did he land?
Yeah, that does deserve a round of applause. I flew in at 6 o'clock this morning. But a lovely flight, and I was up in front of the plane, so I've got nothing to complain about.
This movie obviously means a lot to you. It's now playing in theaters. I'm curious, as the movie's gone on, and now you have people actually paying to see it, and and all the work you've done into it, the reaction that you may have gotten in different places to this film.
It's kind of incredible. Look, it's terrifying to release a film at a festival and hope that critics embrace the film and your peers embrace the film. That's one thing, and then the thing I hadn't thought about next was, all right, now we have to release the film, and we're doing a platform release. So we started in LA, New York, and San Francisco first weekend, and it's been rolling out. And this weekend we go out to 400 screens, and the appetite for the movie is kind of surprisingly great.
It is.
In terms of, I thought this could be a case of a movie that definitely preaches to the choir, excuse the pun, and but there seems to be a real appetite for it as it spreads into the middle of the country, and we're holding very well, and it could have a very long run, and it means something that the word of mouth is really great.
I noticed that because I religiously read the box office grosses week to week and different things as they track this, and this is one that's breaking through. It's very clear that it is, and why do you think that is? Why do you think this movie is connecting to audiences?
Look, I think if you make a movie about, as I say, it's a case of, you make a movie and there's an appetite for it with the people that want to receive the movie, and then you hope that, because there's no doubt there's a level of importance or an aspect of ability to change minds about this movie, but how do you get the people that need their minds changed to watch the film? One way of doing it is to make a movie about religion and make people want to see it because, what are you saying about us and what are you saying about our point of view? And as you've seen in the movie, there's a very empathetic point of view to everybody, almost, too much so. But that's because in the story, as I read the memoir, I really took from the memoir that nobody was trying to hurt Garrett, as his real name is. No one was trying to hurt him. They all thought they were trying to help him, and they all were doing what they thought was an act of love, albeit he didn't need help, and the real love was just accepting him. So I think the fact that there's that hopefulness in the story, I think there are people out there, and I think we can prejudge groups of, church groups and certainly Baptist mentality, and think that everybody within a congregation is against homosexuality. I truly believe, having traveled to Arkansas and visited his family and his congregation, his father's congregation, that not everybody in that church holds that staunch point of view. I think there's a lot of open-mindedness in Middle America and Middle Australia. Conversion therapy is a very big thing in Australia as well. I think there are people who are maybe there's another way, and they find it hard to have that voice. And the great thing about a piece of entertainment like this is that people may, even if it's one person out of a couple who are parents to a child or anybody individual in the community, could go and see the movie and just sort of let it reflect to them about another choice.
I'm curious too, because we talked a couple of years ago when you had Loving out, which is another very American, right into the, you can applaud for Loving. That you started, and you're Australian, you just said that, and Nicole Kidman is, and Russell Crowe is, so is this a universal thing? Is this something, what is it that, drew all of you?
Well, the Russell Crowe and Nicole Kidman angle of it was purely because when I met Garrett, who had written the memoir, one of the first things I asked him was, A, can I meet some other survivors of conversion therapy, but B, like he told me at the time that he had become incredibly stressed and emaciated as a result of his experience. I said, can I see photos of you at this time? Because who I was sitting opposite was a very healthy 30-year-old man. So he sent me photos, and when I saw the photos, they included his parents. And the moment I saw the photos, I was like, oh shit, I've got to reach out to Russell and Nicole, because that's who was staring back at me. And if you saw the photos at the end, like Russell and Garrett's father bear such resemblance, and Nicole with a bit of a blonde wig.
Yeah. I met the mother, and I mean, when I had seen Nicole in it, and I was seeing the mother, they were, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And from the photos, I couldn't tell that Garrett's mother was literally half the size of Nicole. But her translucent skin and her fragile kind of physiognomy kind of said Nicole. So I was reticent to cast two Australians as the parents, but they were the people that truly leaped out of the family photo album.
That is so interesting. So shooting this in terms of the authenticity, because you have the author very involved in it, and the real people all alive and everything, what does that do to your mind as a filmmaker to bring this to life?
Well, you know, the first time I made a movie, it was very much just of my imagination, and the true life aspect of it was just my understanding of experiences of bullying in the real world. And then turning that into a genre experience. This felt like more of a precious thing I was holding, because I was trying to stay true to a memoir. I was trying to hold Garrett as my partner all the way along, and it was important for me to feel even worthy of making the film that he was my partner all the way along, which meant sharing the screenplay with him every step of the way, which meant inviting him to set to watch the screen, the sort of scenes unfold, and also inviting him into every step of the edit process. So if he ever told me that something ran untrue to him, or that he was opposed to anything, I would change it. And that felt like a delicate door to open, but a very necessary one.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because Martha, the mother, said, when I met her, she said, it was actually worse. She said those scenes were, you know, it's harrowing to watch in the movie, but it's even worse in real life as she remembers it too.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you were to go into her point of view in the film, what happened during her week at the hotel was that she would doll herself up as she was wont to do to drop him off and pick him up. But during the day, she would dress down and lie underneath her sheet in the hotel. And there's one moment we picked out where she lies down on the couch, but it was never her point of view, and I wish in some ways we could dive more into that. But I think it's more that her imagination and her experience of how much terror she was feeling once she knew that Garrett was having a painful experience, that she felt terrible about putting him through that, which is what led her to be so vigilant in busting him out of it.
Why did you, in your screenplay, change the names?
Well, Garrett had already changed the names.
In his book?
Yeah, for example, I mean, the best example to draw, and he deserves to be kind of singled out, is the character that Joel Edgerton plays as Henry. That guy was actually Garrett's roommate. And it's a really interesting thing, is why we found it very important to depict that abuse in all its kind of, expose that in a very true sense, is that I find it fascinating, having watched it. Has anyone seen a documentary called The Hunting Ground?
Oh yeah, that's great.
You know, which really speaks to how much the perpetrators of abuse at college somehow get treated better than their victims. And Henry, the character who Joel Edgerton plays, was actually a roommate. And Garrett, when he wrote Memoir, had to protect him by saying that he was someone other. He was a friend, not a roommate. That guy, thankfully, and I'll happily say, is in prison right now for other things that he's done. But I thought it was important to change names for a couple of reasons. One was Garrett had done that in his book, but also there's a point where, and this happened to a friend of mine's project in Australia, where they've named all the real people, and they got close to production, close to releasing the project, and they couldn't show the project in certain states of Australia because of legal reasons. It was like, I'm not making this film, and then 3 or 4 weeks out from showing it, have people send me some sort of legal document saying that I wasn't able to show it. So we distanced ourselves enough, knowing that when we release the film, we'll know exactly where the source material comes from.
Yeah, we got a lot of crazy stuff going on in this country now, so you can't take that.
Growing up in Australia, one of the funniest things was we were like, there's a woman and she sued McDonald's because she spilled coffee on herself. And Australia is not a litigious country at all. And the thing, like the myth in Australia is you all are like suing each other over all sorts of shit. So I think I'm like hardwired to go, all right, I'm just gonna like change the name. Like, I'm gonna set this on Mars.
What about, here you are directing, you're obviously an actor and everything else, and you're doing everything in this movie, so why did you decide to also cast a role, and it's a great role, for yourself?
I've done it on my first movie. I played a small role, and it was a case of being in front of the camera about 1/5 or 1/4 of the shoot. I find that I would love to direct a movie without, complicating the issue by being an actor in it as well. But certainly, I don't think that if I was going to be an actor in a movie, I would do. And I'm in awe of what Ben Affleck has done in the past and what Bradley Cooper has done with Star Wars, being literally almost every frame of the movie.
And Eastwood did that all the time.
Yeah, Eastwood has done it a lot. And what I like is just being a part of the movie. It allows me to stay involved as an actor, but it's only because I feel compelled to play those characters, and generally they're complicated men. In the case of this, is a character, John Schmidt, who I met, who had run the therapy unit for a good 20 years, who, as you know by the final title card, is a very conflicted human being himself. I met and had lunch with him and his husband Larry, and I was kind of amazed at how he wasn't a hateful human being. He was just a very charismatic man with a lot of beliefs that he's now turned around, and I felt like it was something that I was very interested to do.
I love the fact that you left it for the end, for that little card at the end to tell people, because the audience just goes, oh my God, that happened.
It's a nice sort of ironic full stop that exposes the absurdity of the entire thing. I mean, to that point, John Schmidt, who I play in the movie, who ran the Memphis chapter of Love in Action, and a guy called Alan Chambers, who ran the parent company called Exodus International, both acknowledge, along with other leading therapists, that conversion therapy does not work. Yeah. And I think that that's important to kind of know. And there's something about the fact that John is now married and living in Texas, restoring furniture instead of restoring souls. It says a lot in a very neat fashion. And I also didn't want to draw his life as being any kind of central part of it, because it was essentially Garrett's story.
I love the power of movies and the fact that this movie is getting a conversation going, because I happened to see a spot on CBS Sunday Morning, whether it was last week or the week before, and it was all of this, story, and they mentioned the movie, however briefly, but it was their entry into doing a story just about conversion therapy and people on it, which means this movie has driven beyond movies to get people to talk about this subject.
I love it. I mean, I never presume to ever hold any important place in the world or to do any, create any change. But I'm happy to be in the position to talk politically. I'm very nervous about doing it because I worry about being articulate enough, and I also, as you see in the movie, I'm trying to render everybody from an empathetic point of view. But, for example, I think about 3 days ago, I had a text message from my co-producer, David, and someone had tweeted to us that they watched the movie and then drove 5 hours to come out to their parents.
Wow.
Knowing that their parents may or may not have been aware, but explicitly because they have never had a face-to-face conversation with them. We've had people who have used the movie as a kind of icebreaker to the beginning of a coming out conversation. And it never, I'm kind of amazed at what the movie is capable of doing. I'm not surprised, but we're very aware of it, and we're open to it, and we're there to, and Garrett, the author of the memoir, is very much there on social media to interact with people about that. Like, we're not just made the movie and go, okay, now you guys deal with it. There feels like a certain patina of importance to it that feels good, and we feel like we've managed to put something positive into the world, if not just to shine a light on something that we think needs to be stopped.
Power of movies. Let's see if you guys have any questions out there. If you do, raise your hand, and if you don't, just be like you are right now. Yeah, right there. There you are. I see you. Yeah, that's you. Yep.
Hi.
Hello.
First of all, congratulations.
It's a very bright light there.
Should I sit down?
No.
Stand up. It's just a
Your
light.
silhouette is amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
By the way, congratulations on the movie. It's really great. I've seen your work since you were doing Kinky Boots, so amazing job. With this particular topic, and you already said that you felt empathy or trying to portray the situation from an empathic point of view. But how do you manage to portray something? For instance, you said that the writer of the memoir, Garrett, already sent you pictures of. I mean, you could have gone all the way to show the horrors of this. So when do you say, okay, maybe I should stop this, or what kind of criteria you use to make it empathic instead of being like maybe like a chronic or something more?
Look, there's definitely a version of this movie where my character and particularly his father are more evil characters. But when I read the memoir, there's one thing that really struck me, because I read the book 3 times before I started writing the screenplay, is that on the third, it took me 3 times to read the book to realise, because I flicked to the first page of the first chapter, and on the 3rd time I was moving to that page, and I realised that he had dedicated the book to both of his parents, which said a lot about the love he still harbours and hopes for with his father. And that he even spoke about the character that I play with a certain understanding. And what I found fascinating was the reason I wanted to make the movie is, you know, when I first got given the book, I was like, this is great. I'm going to see blood on the pages. It's going to be like some crazy, salacious, weird, vicious, experience I'm going to read about. But then I got to know him through the book. And what he was doing was laying out the fact that his parents were doing to him what they were doing because they loved him and they thought they were helping him. And that what they didn't understand with the information they had, the education they had, and the belief system that they were raised under themselves, that he didn't need any help. And I found that far more fascinating than creating a set of heroes and villains, is that there's a bunch of people out there right now, and not just in the middle of America, but I'm saying in California and New York, because we were cutting the movie in New York, and 20 blocks from us there were 2 conversion therapy places. And there are people who, I don't think they wake up in the morning and say, I want to ruin my child's life. If they wanted to ruin their child's life, they would just cut them off, which a lot of parents do. And those children should really consider separating themselves. But there are a lot of parents who are saying, I'm trying to do this to you because I'm trying to help you circle back to a community that will accept you. Rather than saying, why don't I challenge the community I'm in to accept you, and if they don't accept you, I stand with you because you're my child. And that to me is the complicated aspect that I found in the book, that I feel is the hopeful aspect I discovered through Garrett's mother in particular, is that she was willing to recognise that after the fact and go, hold on a second, maybe I got everything wrong. And she at this moment is in Arkansas and stands by her son, even though he's now living in New York, and probably faces a lot of judgment. But she hears anybody say anything that's homophobic or even racist, she will call that person out. And to me, that's a heroic thing to do. And she never came from a place of hatred. She came from a place of love in the beginning, and now she comes from a really true place of love. And I think that that's why in the movie I never rendered anybody in a way that came from a really villainous place, because I think we're all trying to do good. It's just every now and then our version of good doesn't match up with the right version of good, if you know what I mean.
Anybody else? Yes, okay.
So thank you for the movie. It was really good. I'm actually a social worker in a major hospital, in a clinic, outpatient clinic, in the HIV clinic there. Most of my clients are gay, and I liked your movie, but it's very hard to watch in that you say these parents did things because they loved their children, and the road to hell is paved with good intentions, is it not? I hear this story basically almost every day. I just heard it this morning. And I felt it missed, and I'm sorry for this criticism, but I really felt it missed the true, for lack of a better word, hate or lack of love or desire to cause harm to these people, to my patients, to these men.
By who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the parents.
My parents, yeah. Yeah, look, and I don't take that as a criticism at all, and I'm really happy that you spoke, because Garrett's story was a story that I wanted to tell, because his parents had that love for him and that misinformation. And I've heard many, many, many stories where, as I said just before, there are kids who should cut themselves off from their parents. There's something in Garrett's story where even his father, to this day, he loves him so much. I mean, I sat opposite from him in Arkansas, and he broke down in front of me. His confliction is he now realizes he made a massive mistake setting in conversion therapy. He realizes Garrett is not going to change his sexuality. His disconnect is that he wishes Garrett wouldn't act on his urges. And I said to him, does that mean you prefer him to be lonely? Which is where it boils down to. There are parents who lack even that understanding, and I acknowledge what you're saying, and I think that there are people that need to disconnect, and that's very sad. Why I found Garrett's story was worth telling is because his parents had that space of re-examination, and that's why I felt it was hopeful. There is a website that we have in conjunction with a film called StopRaising.com, which can help people understand the broader spectrum of conversion therapy. David, my co-producer, and Garrett have created a podcast called Unraised, which gives you a deeper understanding of the history of conversion therapy. And I acknowledge, with all understanding of all my research, that there is hatefulness that is behind therapy, hatefulness behind certain parents disconnecting from their children. So I don't take that as a criticism at all. I just think that what we're trying to do through Garrett's story is create a conversation and hopefully set a roadmap for parents. And the beautiful thing about his parents is they did a wrong thing and they were willing to acknowledge in their own separate ways on how to maybe recorrect that balance. There are parents that don't, and they need to be called out as well.
Yeah, that's great. We gotta have some level of hope. There's gotta be, you can't just like say.
You're right, some people don't have hope, and hopefully what the movie can do is be an identifier for young people for the fact that there is a different way out of things. Because even with the internet, there may be no sense for some people. And for parents to realise if they're on the brink of that decision, that maybe they can identify with someone like Nicole's character rather than Russell's character.
Yep. Anybody else? Yeah, right there. Hi.
Hello. I'm wondering if you're in touch with any activists who are working on banning conversion therapy in the states that were mentioned on the end card, and if so, like, what the status is, and if there's been any movement because of the
Yeah, we kept a very close eye as we were making the film because we were debating whether to presume to be any kind of public service announcement, which I debated for a long time as a filmmaker. I'm like, let's just show the film and let's not presume to be any kind of like public service announcement. At the same time, I acknowledged as we got closer, there was a real chance that people could get inflamed by those statistics. So we were keeping a close eye on the 36 versus 14 states. And it changed from, I think, 33 to 36 while we were, 39 to 36 while we were making the film. The greatest project I could point you to is the Trevor Project. And again, it's worth going to stoperasing.com. The Trevor Project has an incentive called 50 Bills for 50 States, which is about, politically putting bills through that will turn over conversion therapy availability in the 36 states that are still there for minors. So that incentive is to abolish conversion therapy on a political level throughout the country in every state. Sadly, the 36 states still allow it. And the interesting thing to note is that under the Religious Freedoms Act, I think it's called, that there is still an ability for religious groups to kind of hide a version of religious conversion therapy, which may be as simple as like taking a young boy or girl into the back room to have a private one-on-one with a minister. And what we're seeking to do is, through the film and through the Trevor Project, is to create a transparency that will allow even that stuff to be diminished. But the hope with the film is that people will see the film, go and explore more and lend their voice, because you don't need to be of the LGBTQ community to be inflamed by it and to make a difference. And the more people that lend their voice to the chorus, the better.
Yeah.
I have a quick question regarding, you went through like a vast spectrum of topics, whether it was like rape and abuse, and you also went through his own admissions of like, that wasn't my sin, like his perspective on that. He also went through suicide, and I was wondering, are there just characters that were completely fictitious, or were you really trying to stick with the memoir on true characters based on their history? Or all stats?
If you didn't hear the question, we were talking about, like, we went through a various spectrum of different therapies that dealt with shaming parents, that dealt with various things, including suicide, and were all of those characters true to the memoir, or was any of them fictitious? A very good question, and there's one big deviance I made from the memoir, which was to create the character of Cameron.
Oh God, that was horrible.
But Cameron, to me, was an important character to create, and I asked Garrett's permission, and I even told John Schmidt, who I played in the movie, that was going to happen, because in one book, one page of the memoir, Garrett talked about how in a previous therapy they held a fake funeral for a child. That boy that had undergone that fake funeral, which was one of many that Love in Action had held, was a boy named Aaron. He came to our New York premiere, thankfully, which means that he's still alive. But I amalgamated that story with other stories that I've read in my research about the many, many, many children who have either attempted suicide or committed suicide. And I thought it was imperative that if we had one shot at telling the story, that it was important to include the lowest reaches of the result of therapy. And when I said that to John Schmidt, the guy I based my character on, to his credit, when I had lunch with him in Texas, he, rather than combat me on that, he said, I think it's important, and he told me a story of a young boy that he had mentored who, soon after he left therapy, had committed suicide. So that was a departure from the memoir, something I got approval on from the author and various people, but something I thought was very important to kind of shed light on as well.
Okay, anybody else before we have to go? I can't see, but, okay, go.
Hey, I was just curious about, there were two characters, I think Sarah and, is it Graham? Is that the guy with the bleached hair?
Gary, yeah, Troy Sloan, yeah.
Gary, I was just curious, they had quite sort of minor roles, and I was just curious about, I don't know if it was a choice or if it was in the book, to have the other people in the program be quite minor roles in terms of his going through the treatment.
Yeah, it was kind of an act. Did you hear the question? Talking about the minor characters in the therapy, the other characters in the therapy, was it an active choice to keep them as minor characters? There's a couple of things. As I was making the movie, I realized just how it was less about the therapy and more about the family. That the family story was more important to me than anything else. But something else was going on, because I watched a lot of movies about groups of kids sort of under pressure. Dead Poet Society, Girl Interrupted, various films where a lot of the kids get, and even a wonderful commercial therapy movie that was made earlier this year had a little bit more of a satirical
Miseducation of
Karen Post, where the kid, it's really about the kids getting together and the empowerment of the kids. Now, Garrett's story was very different. If you notice that the rules for Love in Action was that children weren't allowed to congregate, they weren't allowed to go to the bathroom without a supervision of a therapist. They weren't really meant to be hanging out together. So the result was he never really got to know other people in his therapy. So there wasn't a real true sense of rebellion there, and certainly in Garrett, he wasn't a rebellious individual. And so I made it my mission to tell a story about him, his family, his experience of therapy, and that every other person in the therapy group had a rich tapestry of their own, but they were like threads that if you cared to pull on them, you could imagine a different family story from his, a different reason for why they were there than his, whether they were a young person or an adult person, so that you could catch a glimpse of other characters, but we never really delved into them too much, apart from a little bit of Cameron, a little bit of Sarah, a little bit of Troy Sloan's character, a little bit of Xavier Dolan's character. And to be honest, it saved me a lot of, development in terms of feeling the pressure to develop those characters too much, but it was important to see outside the frame of his story and go, what are their stories like? In the same way that I love The Breakfast Club, and you see just because of the way their parents drop them off, it's like, I wonder what their world is like. And certainly there are rich stories to be told, and every actor that came to us in those meetings I had, their history that they brought to the film was very much akin, many of them at least, was akin to the stories they had in their own life.
All right, I think we gotta go now, but thank you so much for coming here, and thank you, Joel Edgerton.
Thank you, man.